1995. It's the time 4:25 p.m. And this is, tell us your name.
Harriet, Emma, Helen, Johnson, Warren.
That's a long name.
Yeah, that's why I called my kids Mona and Joe. So they at least could write it down without having to forget what it is before they start.
Uh-huh. Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself? Kind of a brief history of your life and some of the highlights and maybe some of the lowlights. And
I'm just going to tell you where my folks come from.
Okay.
My mother was born in Kirkut, Iowa.
Where's that?
Kirkut, Iowa.
Clear Cut?
Kirkut.
Kirkut.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And her father and mother came from Sweden. So I'm of Swedish descent.
Okay. So you would be full-blooded Swede,
I'm
right?
full-blooded Swede.
Okay.
Okay. Now Grandpa and his wife came from Kirk then, and they moved to Calhoun County, Iowa. That's in the central part of Iowa.
Oh, okay. I don't know Iowa at all, so.
Well, my mother's brother and mother died of diphtheria right after they came to Calhoun County, Iowa.
Uh-huh.
So therefore, my mother helped outside to do the farm work, and her sister, Aunt Rena, did the cooking inside. Well, my grandpa married 3 times altogether.
Your grandma?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Grandma Emma Engstrom was the one that delivered me.
Oh, okay.
And then my father came from Sweden, and he came to work for my grandpa. Well, he got acquainted then with my mother, and they married.
Oh, okay.
In 1890.
So he married the employer's daughter?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Well, they left them with the farm to run the farm, and they moved to town. And therefore, his third wife had a son and a daughter, so there was 2 stepsons, and then they had a son. So there was their kids, her kids, and their kids.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But anyhow, I was born on June 8th, 1910, in a farm which the folks had bought in near Rockwell City, Iowa. And they remodeled everything, and that was their home. They had 7 boys and 2 girls, including me. About every 2 years apart was a child came.
Uh-huh.
One child died of a stillborn. One died of spina bifida. And then I had a younger brother that I remember that was killed fell from a tree, and my dad a year later was killed in a car accident.
So your dad died when you were still relatively young?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. He died. He was killed in 1937 when I had already come out to California.
Uh-huh.
And was working out here. Well, I was a regular tomboy. I loved my dogs and my horses because there wasn't many kids my age to play with, because my sister was 16 years older than I was. In fact, when my mother took care of Grandpa when he was sick before he died, I went to school with my sister because I was only about 3-4 years old.
Uh-huh.
So I was going to school back and forth when I was just a young kid. Well, she was my teacher. My sister-in-law was my teacher. And
so your family taught you a lot? lot of your
real early, yeah.
elementary
Yeah.
education.
And then I started school when I was 4, and I went to 2 different schools. One was on one section of land, and one was on the other section of land. And finally, they closed those, and then I went to what they call the town school, which is from first kindergarten to graduation in the one school. Then I liked to ride horses. I had a dog that I used to hitch to my wagon or my sled, and I'd go all over the place.
Huh.
And I would take lunch and water out to the people out in the field, my brothers, and I would help them quite a bit. I mean, I was just had all those brothers, so naturally, I was more like a...
It's like my sister was very much that way.
Yeah.
She was very much that way.
I would have rather been a boy than a girl. Well, some of the incidents out on the farm, one was when my sister got married. It was the beginning of the First World War. And they came to chivalry. I don't know whether these days they know what chivalry is or not, but it was when the people got married, they'd come with their guns and the dang and knocked on the door and whatnot. And
they took the bride, huh?
Yeah. And the bride and groom, they would have to give them money, and then later on they'd have a party. Weeks later. Well, when they came this time, I was only about 5 years, 6 years old. It scared me to death because I seen them all with those guns, and I heard about the war and everything. And I ran into where everybody was eating on the reception and said, "The Germans are here, the Germans are here."
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't long till my brother was drafted into and he had to go.
Into World War One?
The oldest one, Ernest. Well, they didn't know what they was going to do with me because they was all going to go 100 miles away to see my brother off because he was going to go overseas. Well, his wife was also one of my teachers. Well, they said, "You can take her down to my folks and she can stay on." The first night in my life that I ever got homesick. Now I'm going to tell you, that is the worst thing in the world. They had just taken me off over there, dumped me off, and I didn't know them very well, and I cried and cried and cried. But anyhow, I got over that. Because the only place I ever been was when I went to town to stay with my aunt when it was snowing so bad. We lived 3.5 miles from town, and of course, when it snowed, the drift was so bad that we just couldn't go anywhere. So I'd have to go into town to stay all night with my aunt, so I could go to school. Well, anyhow, I went through school there, and what was the usual things kids do, you know. And I practiced piano, but I didn't care for that. So that was that. And we had, when we went to at home in the summertime, springtime, we would butcher, and we would have to pack our meat in jars. It isn't like nowadays canning. We didn't have canning then. So our canning was quart fruit jars. Man would cut up the meat, get it ready for the women in the house, and they would brown the meat, and they would pack the jars, put the juice up to the almost about an inch from the top, screw the top on, but not tight. And they would have the big boilers that we used to boil the clothes in years ago. Then we'd pack the jars in that hot water. We'd always have a mesh screen, some chicken wire underneath all those jars so they wouldn't be right down flat on the boiler. And then we would put the lid on and let that cook until that meat was done. Then we'd tighten the jar lid very carefully, and we put it out on the table to cool. In the morning, we'd go around with a spoon and tap each lid of the jar. It had to have a certain ring to it.
Oh, yeah?
Or we would have to open it up and redo it, cook it.
Uh-huh.
Well, our fruit, some of it was done that way, and some was done with the open kettle method. Just cook it with the sugar in it, pour it in the jars.
Isn't that how they do it today?
Huh?
Is that how they do it today?
Some people do.
Uh-huh.
And then you tighten the lid, and so the air doesn't get in.
Yeah.
Well, we had a basement. It had 3 sections in it. One section we had for the milk, separating the milk, and it was very carefully done. And in the middle section was where we had our wash machines, and we had a furnace in there. We had the coal and the cobs. We used to burn the cobs to start a fire in the furnace. And that's where we had that section. Each one was closed off completely. Then the other section, Dad had built shelves. Go to the top of that room, and we would store our fruit, canned fruit, our vegetables, and our meat.
Uh-huh.
So that each section was all you had to do when you wanted a meal was you grab what you needed of each section, and up you'd go, put it on the stove, and you had your meal. And they always had bread and cakes and cookies. Then
So you had a pretty good supply then.
We'd have a year's supply right there.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And then there was another way that we kept the pork, too. We had those big 10-gallon crock jars,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd brown our meat to almost done. We put them in that jar and pour, imagine this, pour hot lard over that whole 10-gallon. So that sealed that whole top.
Oh, okay.
Then when you wanted some pork chops, you went down and you scraped off the lard and took your pork chops out and put your pork chops in the oven until you got rid of all that fat. See?
Oh, okay.
That's how we used to keep our food.
Hmm.
We always had big gardens. On this farm, we had, I don't know how many apple trees, beautiful apple trees. And in the spring, or just about time for them to get ripe, you'd see me with the salt shaker going out to a tree and sitting up in the tree and eating apples. That
Having
weren't
yourself
quite ripe. But,
a dessert there, huh?
They were good. So we had gooseberries back there. We had one black walnut tree, which was hard to crack them out. We had strawberries. We had the regular garden lettuce and peas and all the vegetables like radishes and onions. And when they had thrashers, one year my mother had fell just before I had gone into training. And she had a big ulcer on her leg. And of course, the doctor made her stay off that leg. So my sister was coming to help me with the thrashers, and we usually had around 30 people. I was about 17, 18 years old.
Uh-huh.
And Dad went to town and got steaks that time. And I fixed steaks and put them in the oven and smothered them. So I had that much done. The night before, I made a 3-gallon freezer of ice cream and the cakes. So I was pretty well ahead there. Well, Mother was out on the porch and had to have her leg up and covered. So I went and got my vegetables from the garden, and she prepared all the vegetables for
Uh-huh.
me. So then all I had to do was cook them. Well, my sister had a flat tire and couldn't get home over there. We lived about 2 miles apart. But finally she got there. By the time to feed the men was already coming in and washing for dinner. But I got through that deal. All right.
Huh.
But back then you learned to plan. If you
Uh-huh.
had something coming up, you learned to plan it. Because you couldn't just say, well, sister's supposed to come over and help me with the dinner. I'll just wait till she comes. But you couldn't do that. You
You
know.
just had to do it, and when they showed,
You
huh?
see, that fall was the fall that I went into college. And Mother told me that I couldn't go to school if that leg wasn't healed. It healed a couple of days before I went in.
Oh, yeah?
And I was accepted.
Now, what'd you go into school for?
Nursing.
Nursing. You're a registered nurse, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah. I went into University of Minnesota and I had my schooling.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. So I was there. It was nice that my aunt and uncle, one of them, the one that was Grandpa's boy. So that was nice that I had somebody in Minneapolis. And that was during Depression. And I'll tell you, there wasn't money for anything.
Uh-huh.
So I,
Looks like Missy's here.
yeah.
Come on in. Hold on a second. There we go. Now I don't have to look to the eyepiece.
Well, I'll tell you some interesting things when I went to school. Well,
Now, how long did it take you to become a registered nurse then?
3 years, but you went straight through.
3 years, so you didn't have any summers off or any of that stuff?
Just maybe a week or something like that.
Okay.
And we was connected with the university, but we had what we call private hospitals.
Uh-huh.
Mine was a city hospital. But I spent, I don't know how many months at a private hospital, and so many months at the university hospital, and so many at the TD Sanitarium at Glen Lake Sanitarium. And we had to have all those in our course.
Uh-huh.
And most all our subjects was at the university. So they gave us tokens so we could ride the streetcar back and forth to class.
Uh-huh.
And then we had a few classes at the hospital that we were at too. What's the matter, honey? Huh? There was a few things that happened that I think would be interesting because they don't do that now.
Uh-huh.
It was the beginning of the Iron Lung. They had paralysis, from polio.
Oh, okay.
And so we started that, our group, and learned how to do that. But what they did with those little kids, they would put them in cast.
Mm-hmm.
And their cast would, poor little things.
This is a polio victim?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's when they first started with polio.
Oh, okay.
Then we had a deal with them where the kids would get anything poked down underneath their cast, and they'd get infection in there.
Uh-huh.
Well, what they did for that, now you wouldn't believe this, but it's true. They would take and send to Chicago for sterile flies, or maggots.
Sterile maggots, huh?
Sterile maggots. Now, maggots will not eat good flesh.
Oh,
They'll eat
okay.
dead flesh, but they won't,
They just won't eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're designed
So what
for.
they would do would cut a square over that place where the kids had got infections in them.
Uh-huh.
And they put those maggots. This had to be all under sterile conditions.
Yeah.
And they put those maggots in there. They put a cage over them so they couldn't get loose up anywhere.
Uh-huh.
And they would clean out all that old dead flesh. And when they got so far, why, then they would go in and clean that all out. And they start, then that...
They would get rid of the infection.
It would start to heal. Get rid. We didn't have antibiotics then. We didn't even know what they were.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's what they did at that time. And then I don't know.
What year was this?
Let's see. That would have to be in. I went in training in 29, and I graduated in.
So around in the 30s, huh?
Yeah, in the 30s. In the 30s. Then let's see.
How old are you now, right now?
Me?
Yeah. Aren't you 89?
85.
Oh, 85. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Then another interesting thing happened. We had what we called public health, where the nurses would go out and they would come into the city hospital. These women and men would come into the city hospital, and they'd have something wrong with them. Then they would, instead of having them come back, the public health nurse would go out and visit them.
Oh, okay.
This is visiting nursing.
Oh, okay. Kind of like a house call.
Yeah. So this one time, I had gone out. Most of ours was pregnant women, and we'd have to check their blood pressure and their urine samples and all that, you know. And I went way out, and this is during Dellinger's time. But Minneapolis, you know, is surrounded with lakes and trees. So I had gone and gone and gone on the streetcar, and finally I found the address. And I started to get out of the car, and this policeman came along. He said, "Where are you going?" And I told him. He said, "You get in this car, and I'm taking you back to the hospital." He said that Dellinger's gang was in this area last night, and all it was trees out there at the edge of the city. So he took me back to the hospital. Well, I didn't get to visit that woman. Well, anyhow, it wasn't shortly after that I got to go home, and my brother and his wife was always good about going places, and I was talking up the Iowa-Minnesota game, big game, because there was a certain kid on there that was really a big good football player.
Football star or something?
He was
All-star?
Yeah, he was an all-star. Everybody knew him all over the country. So, wanted to see that. And so I talked to my brother. I told him, I said, "I'd sure like to see that." And he said, "Well," he said, "come on, let's go." So I went with his brother and his wife. We went in. And when we was there, he said, "Well, let's go on to World Fair." So I got to go into the World Fair. First time I seen
yeah?
World Fair.
And where was this at?
Chicago.
Oh, do they always have it at Chicago or something?
No, they did.
And what year was this?
This is in 1930. Let's see. The year I graduated. That's how come I went home for a while before I went to work.
1930?
32.
1932. That's interesting. My grandma, she was at the World's Fair in 1933.
Well, that must have been the same one.
And she took third place in the typing contest.
She did?
Yeah, we just interviewed her a few weeks ago. She was telling us how she took third place in the World's Fair in Chicago.
Well,
I was thinking, World's Fair, Chicago? Oh, what year was this?
It's 33.
33. Well, then you were there with my grandma.
That's right.
Yeah.
Then we decided that we'd go up and see an uncle and aunt of mine, and in Wausau, Wisconsin, on our way back home. And while we was there, we stopped at a bridge before we went into Minneapolis, and they had a shootout there, or a raid of some kind, and they were diving. First time I'd seen these divers with big dome helmets on them, and they were diving, and when they wouldn't let us go across the bridge until after they got through and found out what was down there. It evidently was Dellinger's gang, and they had loads of food in trucks.
Oh, yeah?
And they got too hot for them, so they run their trucks off into this river.
Oh, yeah?
So...
Was this John Dillinger?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My dad talks a lot about John Dillinger.
Yeah, well, at the same time.
Yeah, he's real famous.
Well, my brother was late taking his money from the lumber yard to the bank. And they had just hit the bank. And when Oscar looked down, he saw all these casings of bullets,
Uh-huh.
around. He just missed them. And my sister-in-law, my niece and nephew, their family lived at Canarum, Iowa, and they raided the bank there, and their name was Canarum. Their grandfather had named this town and started that town.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. And also raided the oil company there.
Oh, okay.
So we had kind of a run-in at that time with the town.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I did private nursing for a couple of years back at Rockford City after I got through. I did work at the Minneapolis Hospital for a while, but I was taking a girl's place that was sick. And I was taking care of an uncle at the time, and then I helped deliver my niece that lives in Washington now. And I got a letter from about that time from a cousin in Long Beach.
Oh,
She said that they needed help out there right after that big earthquake.
Oh, okay.
At Long Beach, the first big one that they had. So I got ready and got dressed and packed and everything and come out at Christmas time. Saw the Rose Parade the next day and started working. But I got pneumonia and was in bed for a while. And
when did you marry Percy?
around 36, something like that.
You were around
met him.
oh, okay. In 1936? Oh, okay.
And we went together a while and got engaged. And one day his brother's car rolled up and he came up where I was living and said he had something to tell me. And so I get in the car and away we went. So I come to find out he was married.
Oh, yeah?
So he'd been separated from his wife for a long time. His brother, he was already engaged. And his brother said, "You go tell that girl." So he did. And we finally figured it out that we finally got a divorce from her. We got married. But we were so much alike. He liked to fish and hunt, and so did I. And we just got along.
If you were to describe him, how would you describe him? We can't interview him, obviously.
He's the best-hearted guy in the world, as far as that goes.
He what?
He was the best-hearted. He'd do anything.
Oh, okay. Big heart.
Yeah, big-hearted. He was 5'8" and a half, or 8, I think it was 5'8". Kinky hair. They're like niggers will. And his mother died when he was real young. And just a little type.
Uh-huh.
So Dad had 2 girls, Granddad, his father, had 2 girls, and 4 boys. And he took those boys and raised them himself. And Thelma and Treva got married.
Those his sisters?
Yeah.
Okay.
She got married, finally took Thelma. But Thelma was with some people for a while. And Treva had 17 pregnancies.
17 miscarriages?
She had 14 living.
14 that lived, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Now, what's the name of his sister?
Treva.
Treva.
Treva
Okay.
and Thelma.
Treva and Thelma.
And the boys' names were Hat. Well, his name was Wilburn. They called him Hat, Bill, Eddie, and Pierce.
Okay.
And so he would go from place to place and farm. Boys would help him. And he had quite a struggle. He didn't marry until after the kids were all grown. He married a lady.
Uh-huh.
And Piercy and Thelma moved back home for a while and helped Dad. But he had a farm out here. He had Merced, a farm out here, and he was going to put the boys all up in business. Had places for each one of them.
Uh-huh.
That fall, the fog came in and was so thick that they didn't pick one bit of cotton. It broke him.
Huh.
He was pretty well fixed at one time.
Uh-huh.
And then he and Piercy, Granddad and Piercy, let the boys all go on their own except Piercy. And he and Dad went and started picking fruit. Then Dad married, and Dad got married too. And they worked in the cannery.
Oh, yeah.
At Turner Island. And Dad.
That kind of line.
Well, the first night I went out with Piercy, we went out to the gambling boat. Now, the gambling boats were about 5 miles out of Long Beach. You couldn't gamble any closer than that.
They wouldn't allow you to?
Uh-uh.
Okay.
So they gave you free dinners, and after work, I worked till 11 o'clock. So we went out on a ferry or whatever you call them, to take you out there. And then you'd eat free dinner, you could gamble if you wanted to. But that was all new to me. I never seen anything like that. And that night, Piercy said, "I'm going to marry you." And I said, "The heck you are." I didn't. First time I met him, and the first time I met him was the funny part. I was going to work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and these friends of ours picked me up. I was going to take me. I said, "Well, let's go get a Coke before we go to work." So
Uh-huh.
as we was driving to the little cafe that was near the hospital there, why, he stopped the car, and Piercy came over. I didn't know him. Greasy. He'd been out, I don't know how many days with a truck. He drove truck for his brother.
Oh, okay.
And for quite a few years when I met him. Well, he entered this boy and girl that I was in the car with. They introduced me to him, and he said, "How about going out Monday night?" I thought, "Oh yeah, you won't be there." So
not a lot of faith, huh?
Yeah, Grease. Oh, he was a mess. And so I came out the door. Here stood this guy in a slick double-breasted suit, all cleaned up and shined up. He said, "You ready to go?" I couldn't believe it. Just couldn't believe it. Well, I had to go home and change clothes. I couldn't go out there in a uniform. That was disgraceful. So I went, changed clothes, and we all four of us went out to the gambling boat. That was the first night together.
Huh. You guys did a lot of traveling when you were married, too, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. And see, Piercy found out that I didn't. Of course, he was a truck driver, and that was just automatic with him.
Uh-huh.
So we'd take a weekend and probably go to Grand Canyon, come back and change clothes and go to Yosemite. I mean, that's just
Going around a lot of places, huh?
Oh, yeah. I've seen a lot of California women with him.
Oh, I bet.
And after we got things straightened up, we lived there at Long Beach for a while. And his brother had sold his truck. Chris was working for somebody else. And one day, here, Eddie and Ola and Clarice came. His flat broke. They had bought a place up on the Rope River in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
The electricity broke
Too much electricity?
The electricity cost them too much to broke.
Oh, man.
They had built a log cabin and had a nice place up there. So we had saved, when we decided to take our paychecks, and what was left over, it was an even amount. We put it in a kitty. So we had, I think, I don't know how much, but anyhow, when they got there, we had to rent a place. Well, we found a place that for the amount of money that we had in that kitty.
Exactly, huh?
Yeah. Oh boy, I tell you, things are tough then too. Poor Eddie didn't have his shoes were wearing out and he couldn't find a job. And finally, Percy got him a job up on the hill. He was working, hauling crude oil up on Signal Hill. Finally helped him get a job up there. And we all lived there in Wilmington in one house. Nice place. And did all right. So we had, I don't know how many months we lived there. But anyhow, one of the friends of Percy told me he had a little house he was going to sell out of Compton.
Uh-huh.
Well, what it was, they had fixed a garage up as a cottage. And the front end of that was full of big lot.
Uh-huh.
Big lot. Well, we just thought, if we can swing it, maybe we can build us a house out there on the front. Well,
and this was where again?
Compton, California.
Compton.
Where all the colored people live now. And Percy and I stayed there for a while, and we got pretty well settled. And cell phone rang, and he had to be transferred to Blythe. Here we had to pick up everything we had, which wasn't much, and move to Blythe. Well, in Blythe, he was had to drive the truck out of there, and then finally Eddie was the boss down there. And finally he become the boss. But we were there for a while. When all the bosses decided from the big company to come down, I'd have to take them out hunting.
Oh, yeah?
So I was
You were the scout, huh?
the scout. Take them out hunting for ducks and pheasants and quail. Then the thing of it was, we lived in a shack, and I'm telling you, a shack. You couldn't believe it.
Huh.
One night, Chris and I killed 30 of those big, hard cockroaches.
Oh, yeah? In one night, huh?
Yeah. Which, I don't know whether you remember had these old-fashioned spray guns years ago with a big...
I don't know. You'll have to tell me about it.
Like a ball on the end, and your spray would come out the end, but you had to pump them and it would spray the spray out.
Oh, okay.
Well, I spray and Percy kill. We got 30 that night. One place, we walked in and we walked out because the cockroaches were so bad. But in Blythe, people didn't have fancy homes. They were just beginning to build these mobile homes. I mean, not mobile homes, but
The prefab?
Tourists, overnight.
Oh, okay.
We tried to one of those, $90 a month for those. But we was only making 50 cents an hour.
Oh, yeah.
So you see what we was doing.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. So you had to take whatever was there. And nobody thought anything about it because it was depression. We had one family came through.
Were they actually selling those things?
No, they were just renting.
Or renting them?
They were just renting.
They could rent them to people,
They
huh?
just wanted to rent them overnight.
Yeah.
Well, some people came through and they would stop at the job because right on the way. And they wanted to get back east. They had to get back east. I don't know what it was for, but it was depression. Nobody had anything. And Percy lent them some tires for those people to go clear back east. And those people one day sent those tires back.
Oh yeah.
Sent them back. And appreciated what we had done.
Yeah, and appreciation.
Yeah, that's how bad things were. And we didn't have any money either. We had to, when we first went down there, we had to put our groceries on a charge account.
Uh-huh.
But see, they knew Percy from Percy used to work on the bridge that went over the Colorado River. That's when he got burned, I told you about.
Uh-huh.
The boiler busted. But things were tough there. Well, Christmas time, everybody came to our house for Christmas. Because we had gone out hunting and got all these quail and everything, so that way we had meat,
Yeah.
And here's what Dad said to me. He said, Johnny, you all call me Johnny, said, here's something I want you to eat. So here comes some pumpkin seeds. And I said, what's these for? He said, I want you to eat these because you and Percy haven't had a child yet. So the next Christmas I was pregnant. But we moved back. The boss wouldn't let me have the baby down there. So he moved us back to Los Angeles, and we went back in our house. We had rented it for a while, but we went back in the little house.
Mm-hmm.
And after, Mona was born, we had, we was there to see them. We were there almost a year. Then we moved back to Blythe. We had a little bit better place then because they had built up some courts, they call them.
Uh-huh.
And had a little bit better place. And then we rented a house from one of Pierce's Masonic friends. And there Joe was born. That's when she was pretty. She weighed 2 pounds, so I brought her home and figured she was going to die. I might as well take care of her anyway.
2 pounds, huh?
Mm-hmm. She weighed a little bit more than that, but she lost that much weight.
Huh.
And so then, see, we was there for, then some friends of ours down there that Percy knew over in Coolidge, Arizona, they had a farm down on the Colorado River. Well, they had 20-some acres that land. They didn't care about putting it in.
Mm-hmm.
So they came in one night. See, we had helped them when they got in a jam. A windstorm came up, and they were just living in a tent house. And we'd helped them several times, and they came in and stayed at our place. And so they hadn't forgotten that. So they said, if you pay $1,000 to pay the other guy off, we will give you our share. Well, it happened at that time that my folks had died, and they were straightening up the estate, so I did have some money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote to my sister, and I told her the situation. So they sent me some money, and so I got started putting it in, but it cost me a lot of money to put that land in. So they had to put the ditches in, had to clear the land,
Mm-hmm.
and it was right after the Second World War.
Yeah.
So that, cost me some money. But I did all right. We was there for several years on the place, and we had, I guess I told you about the sheep, didn't I?
I don't.
Went to the auction.
No, you haven't told me. I want to hear about the snake story too.
Oh.
On the car, but you tell me when it's.
The snake?
Yeah, share it when it's in chronological order of what you're
Okay.
telling me. So.
Well, we lived out there on that place, and as we was clearing, all that was rattlesnakes. And which snake did you want?
The big long one.
Oh, the big long one.
The big
Oh, well,
that they had put on the car.
yeah, that one was, it was raining, and these guys down along the river, there was a saloon there, and a store, and a post an alligator sluice years ago, and every once in a while you see these big prints in the
Big
sand.
marks in the sand.
Yeah, marks in the sand. Well, this didn't happen to be an alligator. This is a big old rattler. And those guys caught that rattler, tied it on the running board. That's when the cars had running boards.
Uh-huh.
And drove it up to the saloon to show it to this guy.
Uh-huh.
Of course, one guy came out. First thing he did, he shot him. So they killed that thing.
How long do you think it was?
It was the length of that car. I think, I know it was 21 inches round.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
So I don't know, and I don't know how long the car was, but from the front end of the car to the back.
Probably at least 10 feet,
Oh yeah.
if not more.
Yeah. And they skinned that thing and put it up on over the bar.
Uh-huh.
And people go all over the country to see that.
To see that, huh?
But that thing was huge.
Oh, yeah. 21 inches? That's probably the size of my leg.
Well, yeah,
That's pretty big. That's about the size of my leg.
I don't know how many rattlers there are. I think it was so old it said most of them were gone. But that thing was huge.
Now, what about the sheep story?
Oh. Well, the boys had all gone hunting to Utah.
Uh-huh.
At the machine shop. Well, we had just killed one underneath the house. My brother-in-law can smell it. You can smell those doggone things.
Uh-huh.
So, no, it was Mrs. Woodard that smelled it when they gave us the place, her part of the place. And we had, our house was up like this yet. We hadn't got it finished. So, she had been over and visited now, and she could see it. So she got down there with her nose and everything, because I had shown Mona, I didn't want them to get bit.
Oh, okay.
Gun rattler. And so I tried to keep things pretty well organized. So Eddie got the rake and he pulled that thing out, and we killed that rattler. Well, then the boys started wanting to go hunting up to Utah. So I was out there by myself, and the two girls, and Grandpa, apparently Dad, was getting too old to drive, so I bought the little Model 8 from him. So we was putting down the lane there, and I looked over there in the field right across the fence. There's a big old rattler coiled. So I told the girls, I said, don't you get out of this car. You stay right here. And I'm going to run to get the gun. They ran to the house to get the gun, and all that they had left me was a rifle.
Oh, yeah?
So I filled that magazine full, and I went where the girls were. And I got up on the radiator of that car, and I let that snake have every shot. So when I got through with that, I ran to the corral and got the shovel, and I went over there and I chopped that thing, and chopped it and chopped it and chopped it. I don't know how many pieces I got out of that big old snake, but I was scared to death.
I'd imagine.
See, the fence line went like this. Then we had our lane that went up to the highway. That's the lane that went right up to Phoenix. And our corral was on this side, and there was always weeds. And boy, I always kept those weeds chopped because I figured the girls would be playing, and that you want to strike them,
Yeah.
Oh, then, while they were gone, Mrs. Nall and Clarence and Leona was going to go, they were going to have an auction in Blythe that is a little over a mile to town. So I took the girls and off we went to the auction. Well, I'd never been to an auction before, and especially sheep. So I had just bought my dog from the guy that was running the auction.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that I had just got this little place. And because he had a lot of sheep and his dog had pups, and I went down there and I bought a border collie for $5. So this is now they were looking at these sheep. There was 12 head of sheep, and they were loaded, just ready to drop. In fact, some of them were dropping their young in the corral there while he was having the auction. And Mrs. Nile looked over at me and she said, "Do you know that those are going for $14 a head?" And I said, $14 a head? Sold to Mrs. Warren. I didn't have a place to put sheep. I didn't know how to take care of sheep. And where was the house?
But you knew they were pregnant, right?
Yeah. No,
and they didn't, apparently.
Huh?
They didn't, apparently.
What?
Didn't know that they were pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Everybody knew they were pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Because they were dropping them right there.
Oh, okay.
So, anyhow, here come Mr. Wood and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, Clarence," but I said, "I bought 12 head of sheep." And it said $14 a head. He said, "Well, how are you going to get them out there?" I said, "I don't know." He says, "Where are you going to put them?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, I'll see what I can do."
Did they take you to the auction after that?
No, it wasn't long till I had them all sold off and we had to move again. Anyhow, the guy that sold them to me,
Mm-hmm.
he said, "I'll let you have the truck," and he was just grinning all the time. He knew what he'd done. So we loaded up all those sheep and took them out to the ranch, and we had wire out there. To see, I had, how many horses did I have then? I had Dawn and Ribbon and the Colt and Firewall. I had that many horses. So all we had to do is run the chicken wire
Oh, okay.
around there. So we had them corralled in pretty soon.
Uh-huh.
So here I had all those sheep. Maybe they're dropping right and left. They were getting old. The grandma, we had to put her up on a bale of hay to get her babies. She had, was it twins or triplets something. But I made no money on that. My sister and my mother died of bowel obstruction.
That of what?
Bowel obstruction.
Oh, okay.
I just want this on so that if they ever come back on the medical, that they know
Oh, okay.
these things. That's
Bowel obstruction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which we are sure that was cancer, but we couldn't operate because of their condition. I had one brother that died of pneumonia, one with kidney condition, mostly old age. Father and youngest brother were killed. And Albert died of high blood pressure and stroke. And Ben with heart trouble. I ought to take care of. Because lots of times your history that you want to know what happened to this one or that one.
Oh, yeah. It helps in medical in the future. Yeah.
So,
That's good to know.
yeah. Of course, with me, I have lupus, heart condition, and high blood pressure. So that's their mother. And Kirsty, of course, died of gangrene in the bowel.
Was that caused by anything?
Yeah, he died on the table and they brought him back.
Uh-huh.
And the blood clot.
Okay.
Blood stopped flowing.
The blood clot's what caused...
Yeah, see, his heart surgery was nothing wrong with that.
Uh-huh.
And he had heart surgery. And a couple years later, then switched his bowel. He had 5 operations.
I don't know how you could get nourishment through that. You know, it's like
We got
very difficult.
food through his heart.
Yeah. That'd be about the only way you could, I'd imagine.
And it was made up in the lab. The food was. It was given right through
Yeah.
to the heart.
See, my dad has ileitis, which is colitis, but it's of the small intestine, and he's had several operations on that.
Yeah.
And but I'm told it's not hereditary, but
Yeah.
you never know, I guess. Yeah.
Our dad sure suffered.
These are the ones the church rents out, huh?
Yep.
That's pretty nice, though.
You can come up here and stay